Week 5 of the NFL season is in the books, and it was another entertaining week of football. The Mac Jones-led 49ers defeated the Rams to start the week on Thursday night, and the Drake May-led Patriots beat the Bills on Sunday Night Football in Buffalo to stun all of Western New York. And in Week 5, both of the remaining undefeated teams in the Philadelphia Eagles and Buffalo Bills went down, and the 1972 Dolphins popped the champagne, as we will have to wait another year to see if anyone can go undefeated. But in today's video, we're going to break down the biggest winners and losers from the 5th week of the NFL season. We're going to discuss what went right, such as CJ Stroud and Dak Prescott each throwing 4 touchdown passes, and things that went wrong, like the Dolphins blowing a 17-point lead to the Carolina Panthers, and the Raiders losing by over 30 points on the road in Indianapolis. The 2025 NFL season is really taking shape, and 5 weeks in, there's clear Super Bowl contenders and clear teams who should start preparing for the 2026 NFL Draft. And there will be a couple of more winners and losers mentioned at the end of the video, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video by discussing the New England Patriots. The Patriots are 3-2 after a 23-20 win in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football in Week 5, and this felt like a huge step in the right direction. The Patriots lost to the Steelers in Week 3 with a score of 21-14, and that was in a game where they committed 5 turnovers. And when you lose a one-score game in a game where you also commit 5 turnovers, well, you can't help but feel like you let one slip away, especially in a game where you outgain your opponent by over 150 yards. They thumped Carolina in Week 4 by 29 points, and heading into this game against the big bad 4-0 Buffalo Bills, well, I thought it would have been great for this team to keep it close and let the Bills know, basically, hey, we're knocking on the door and we're almost here. But they won the game outright. And the Patriots are not only winners for being alive in the division race, but they're also winners for having a good connection between Drake May and Stefon Diggs. And in Diggs' return to Buffalo, he had 10 receptions for 146 yards and looked like a legit number 1 receiver, and a guy Drake May has needed since being drafted to New England. And I also thought the 11-play, 90-yard, near 6-minute drive to put the Patriots up 10 was classic Mike Vrabel football. And the Patriots' next 3 games are at the Saints, at the Titans, and home against the Browns, and heading into the season, I said that I wouldn't be surprised at all if this team doesn't start out 6-2, and there's a very real chance this happens. One of the biggest things this team needed was Stefon Diggs to get all the way back, as remember, he tore his ACL in late October of last year against the Colts, so there is a reality where he wasn't 100% in the first few games of the year, but he looked like his old self against Buffalo in Week 5, and with the combination of the Patriots' upcoming schedule, their young quarterback clearly being the guy, and beating the last undefeated team in the NFL, well, they're big winners from Week 5. And the Bucs are also big winners from Week 5 as they went out to Seattle and beat the Seahawks 38-35 in what was one of the best games of the young 2025 season. Through 5 weeks, I would personally say this game was number 2 behind the Ravens and Bills in Week 1, but the Bucs are truly never out of a game. And we discussed draft regrets in a video that was released a couple of days ago. I recommend watching after this one, but we discussed how teams are going to regret passing on Emeka Egbuka in the next few years, and it was because of how solid he was as a draft prospect. And a lot of the time during the NFL draft process, we talk about drafting good football players to raise the floor of your football team, and Emeka Egbuka was exactly that. Tampa was out several starters in this game, including guys like Bucky Irving, Mike Evans, Jalen McMillan, Cody Mauch, and Kalijah Kancey to name a few, yet went out and put up 38 points on the road, and Emeka Egbuka had 163 receiving yards and a touchdown in his 5th career game. Jason Light, the Bucs GM, undoubtedly hit on this pick, and the Bucs are one of the most fun teams to watch week in and week out because this team never backs down and is never truly out of a game. This was an all-time uniform matchup between Tampa Bay and Seattle, and the game didn't disappoint to say the least. And Emeka Egbuka now has 445 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns in his first 5 career games, and for reference, he has 2 more receptions and 11 less receiving yards than Jamar Chase did in his first 5 games back in 2021, who of course would go on to have 1,455 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns in his rookie year. And Baker Mayfield, Emeka Egbuka, Josh Grizzard, and Jason Light are all undoubtedly big winners from Week 5. The Raiders are in today's video not just because they lost 40-6 in Week 5, because this game was a 0-0 game at one point. It didn't just magically get to 40-6. They're in today's video because of how this game got to 40-6. And I do want to credit the Raiders and their defense for stepping up and stopping the Colts offense on the very first drive of the game, because this was a team that came in hungry off of a Week 4 loss against the Rams at SoFi in a game that the Colts very much internally thought they should have won, and understandably so. You lose by a touchdown in a game where your receiver drops a ball on the goal line, which, side note, in 2025, I don't know how that's still happening, but even within that said game, there was another big 50-yard touchdown that Jonathan Taylor had that was also brought back because of an Adonai Mitchell holding penalty. So it was a double whammy for the Colts to lose the way they did in week 4 to the Rams, and that was a game that they very much thought they should have won. So internally, they thought they should have been 4-0. So for the Raiders to come out and stop this team that was already very much pissed off entering this game was a credit to Patrick Graham's defense. And I also want to credit Chip Kelly for having the play design that he did on the first play of the game, as it was a 0-0 game and you have a chance to really set the tone. I mean, you're 1-3 heading on the road against a team that internally believes they should be 4-0, and you could make a very legit case that the Colts should have been 4-0 entering this game. And the play design that Chip Kelly called was beautiful in every aspect, and it even started with the pre-snap motion because it signified to Geno Smith that the defense was going to be in man-to-man coverage. The Raiders motioned 2 players into a trips formation to have Jacoby Myers and Ashton Jeanty on one side of the football, and the Colts were in man-to-man coverage with single high safety. And the reason that this is big for Geno Smith pre-snap is he knows they're going to be in man-to-man coverage, and with a single high safety against a trips formation, that safety's eyes have to be on the trips formation, because if a corner or a safety who is in one-on-one coverage, because Cam Bynum is a Colts safety, he was also in one-on-one coverage on this play, if somebody falls down and they're running a deep ball, Geno Smith has an easy pitch and catch to the house for an 88-yard touchdown to start the day for the Raiders. Indy would be down 7-0. Chip Kelly knows this pre-snap, Geno knows this pre-snap, so before the play even starts, there's a lot of mind games going on between the offense and defense, and what we eventually have is Ashton Jeanty running a wheel route, and the genius of this play is from Chip Kelly is to have Jacoby Myers run a 6-yard route to go in and sit down in the middle of the play, which forces linebacker Joe Bacci, who is one-on-one coverage with Ashton Jeanty, to either make a decision to run through Jacoby Myers, which would obviously be a bad decision because if he chooses to run through him, then he would significantly slow down, and there would also be a possibility of an illegal contact penalty or a pass interference of some sort. And then you would also have Ashton Jeanty running free for a pitch and catch for Geno Smith. So Joe Bacci is put in a position where it's a pretty impossible position because he has to run around Jacoby Myers to get through the traffic. And whenever you are in a situation with Joe Bacci versus Ashton Jeanty one-on-one on a wheel route down the sideline, I think we know who we're going to choose to win that one every time. And the genius also within this play was Geno and Chip both knew pre-snap that the safety was going to be looking at the trips formation because, again, if somebody falls down or if the Raiders are running a pick route where you run a wheel route on the opposite side, you have somebody running free for the possibility of an 80-yard touchdown. So the safety's eyes are, obviously, they're going to be focusing on the trips formation to the left pre-snap and even after the snap. So in a lot of ways, this is Jacoby Myers running a designated pick route, although it's not technically a pick route because Jacoby Myers is sitting down. And the point is this was a beautiful play design for the Raiders on the very first play of the game, and this is what's frustrating because within the Raiders' poor 1-4 start, you will see plays like this where everybody's on the same page, everything's clicking, and the Raiders have a really good play, and unfortunately it's very few and very far between. Now, why the Raiders are in today's video is because for every play they have like this, where it legitimately looks like poetry in motion that even starts pre-snap, and again, a big credit to Chip Kelly for calling this effective of a play on the very first play of the game, the rest of the team at times, as soon as they get punched in the mouth, it's like they don't know how to respond. And there was a point in this game where the Colts blocked a punt, and they had a very short drive. They started the ball within the Raiders' 10-yard line. They score a touchdown. They make it 14-3, and on the very next drive, the Raiders start to drive again, and Geno throws an interception, which, by the way, was not his fault. The ball was tipped at the line of scrimmage, but after the interception, the Colts then made it 20-3, and on the ensuing drive, it was just a couple of seconds before half. The Raiders missed a field goal, so we're down 20-3 at half. They come out of half, they punt the football, the Colts make it 26-3. Geno throws a terrible interception in the second half, which was, again, for every play that we have, like the very first play of the game, you'll have one in the second half where Geno throws a brutal interception where as soon as he hiked the football, it did not matter what was happening. He predetermined the hell out of his read, and he was going to throw this football no matter what, and that's an extremely frustrating play because Mekhi Blackmon, all he did was sit down on the play and make the interception, and there was a player even going behind Mekhi Blackmon who was kind of jogging within the route, and you could see it on the all-22, and it didn't matter because Geno Smith predetermined where he was going with the football. So for every play that Geno makes at the start of this game, it seems like there's just a complete Jekyll and Hyde or Jekyll and Geno effect where where you don't know what Geno Smith you're going to get on a play-to-play basis, and not only that, but the defense is also not very good, and they gave up 40 points for a reason in this game. And the Raiders, despite being coached by Pete Carroll, who, preaches that we're going to be a tough team, we're going to go through adversity, doesn't seem to be actually going through the adversity and tough times the way that they preach preseason. And this is a very difficult situation for the Raiders to be in, because this was a team that wanted to commit to a playoff run this year, and it doesn't look anything close like that they're going to go to the playoffs in 2025. And I have no idea what the next steps for this team are, other than to try and tear it down and completely rebuild again. Next up is Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. It's very easy to say in hindsight that the Cowboys were going to kill the Jets, and the Jets are the same old Jets in every narrative you can think of regarding this team. But there was a point where New York was favored in this game because of how many players the Cowboys had out. And for reference, the Cowboys starting offensive line against the Jets in Week 5 from left to right was Nate Thomas, Hakeem Adeniji, Brock Huffman, TJ Bass, and Terrence Steele. They were without 4 of 5 starters along the offensive line, yet put up 37 points on the road and won by double digits. And this was in a game where Dak Prescott threw 4 passing touchdowns and Ryan Flournoy had over 100 receiving yards. And not only were 4 offensive linemen out, but so was star receiver CeeDee Lamb, who has missed a couple of games now too. Javonte Williams also ran for over 130 yards in this game, and hindsight is always 20/20, and it's easy to say the Jets stink and they're 0-5 for a reason, but Vegas didn't make the Jets favorites so they could purposely lose money. Vegas has all of those buildings and casinos for a reason, and I also want to give a lot of credit to Brian Schottenheimer for having this team play the way they do every single week. Admittedly, I wasn't a fan of this hire when it was made, but the Cowboys are giving everything they have every single week, and their offense can compete with anyone. And Dak Prescott is playing some of the best football of his career. The Texans have went through a lot of adversity in the early parts of the 2025 season, and I've been critical of this team at times, especially with play calling, as there's been times where I thought Nick Haley was way over his head, most notably on the goal line sequence of the Bucs game back in Week 2, but the Texans put up 44 points against the Ravens in Week 5 and entered their bye week on a very positive note. I know there will be a crowd that talks about how injured the Ravens are, and I get it. They are undoubtedly one of the most banged up teams in the NFL at the moment, if not the most injured team at the moment, but from the Texans' point of view, you can only play who's in front of you. You can't control Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, Nnamdi Madubuike, and Marlon Humphrey, among others, being out. And I know Houston's win against Tennessee in Week 4 was ugly, at least through the first 3 quarters, but the Texans enter their Week 6 bye by outscoring their opponents 64-10 in their last 5 quarters. And again, I don't care who you play, you can only play who's in front of you. And for CJ Stroud to throw 4 touchdowns and look like his confidence is coming back, well, that's a big step in the right direction. And I'll be honest, heading into Week 5, I didn't think the Broncos were going to win at the Link. I thought it would have been big for them to keep it within a field goal and to play the defending champions in their place, tight for 4 quarters, and use that as a confidence booster moving forward. But the Broncos won 21-17 and had 18 unanswered points to close out a hard-fought win. Bo Nix was also 9 of 10 in the fourth quarter for 126 yards and also threw a touchdown pass, and like we mentioned in the Week 5 recap, the Broncos' next 2 games are against both New York teams, one in London and one in Denver, and I think there's a very real chance this team starts out 5-2. And I know it's only 1 game, but if they do start out 5-2, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I feel like there's a huge difference as a fan between your team starting out 5-2 and 4-3. I thought this was a gateway game for Denver, where if you win, you can really buy in due to their schedule coming up, and Denver can win several games in a row, and scoring 18 unanswered in the defending champion's place to win a game as a road underdog, well, that's a big winner every single week. The Miami Dolphins are in today's video not just because they lost to the Panthers in Week 5, but because of how they lost to the Panthers in Week 5. And if I would tell you at any point heading into a game that your favorite team is going to be up by 3 scores and they're also going to win the turnover battle 2-0 at a specific point in the game, you'd probably say, great, we're going to win and we'll move on to the next week. And there was a point where Miami was up 17-0 and they won the turnover battle 2-0. But within this game, and why the Dolphins are in today's video, is they were outrushed 230 49-19. And it is really difficult to rush for 19 yards in an NFL game over the course of a 60-minute game, whether somebody breaks off a 12-yard run and then an 8-yard run to have 20 total rushing yards, and then to even average 1 yard per carry the rest of the game. It is insanely difficult to finish the day with 19 rushing yards as a team. And I don't expect many people to remember this game other than Ravens fans and Dolphins fans. Ravens fans for all the right reasons, Dolphins fans for all the wrong reasons. But at the start of the 2019 season, the first of Lamar Jackson's 2 MVP campaigns, it was a highlight reel for the Ravens. They won 59-10. Lamar had a tremendous game, and Miami even rushed for more yards in that game despite losing by 49 points, and credit to Kyle Krabs from Locked on Dolphins for pointing this statistic out. But they rushed for more yards in a game they lost by 49 points than they did against the Carolina Panthers in a game they were leading by 17 points. And that is one of the biggest reasons they're in today's video. Now, I know people love to get their jokes in about Tua, and Tua turned the ball over and everything like that, but this was not a Tua loss. This was a very frustrating loss in the trenches, and again, like we said, this was a team that significantly emphasized trench play this offseason, and I don't know what the vision for the Dolphins is at this point, other than to say that, hey, Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier, they're going to clean their offices out at the end of the year, and Tua will somehow, some way be shipped off again, because he's not the long-term answer either, although this was not a bad Tua game by any means. But this is a very bleak outlook for the Dolphins at this point in time, and it's really hard to be up by 17 points at a point in an NFL game and to only rush for 19 yards as a team in a 60-minute game. The Arizona Cardinals are up, and the loss that they had to the Titans in Week 5, which was a 22-21 loss, was nothing short of both frustrating and humiliating. And I kind of ask the question pertaining to this loss specifically, do you think this happens with a competent NFL franchise with both good coaching and good overall talent on the roster? And to me, the answer is no. Does a Kyle Shanahan team lose this game? Now, I know Kyle's had his thing with blown leads before, but does he lose this type of game to the Tennessee Titans, who, entering this game, were 3-18 under Brian Callahan? There were so many things that had to go right for the Titans in this game just to have a chance at winning, and the Arizona Cardinals botched it. And that is my frustration with the Cardinals at this point in time, and why I don't trust the people leading this team long-term for the outlook of the Arizona Cardinals. They were up 21-6. Amari DiMercado had a touchdown. He was going to run it in to make it 28-6, drops the ball at the goal line. And to me, that's kind of an attention to detail thing, because if I were Jonathan Gannon in the meetings all week, I would have played the Adonai Mitchell clip from Week 4 and basically said, if you have a breakaway touchdown, I don't care what you do, run the football with both hands through the end zone. That way there is absolutely no question of whether or not you get into the end zone. He drops the football. The Titans eventually make it a 21-12 game. And even from an analytical standpoint, the Brian Callahan decision to kick the extra point was not the correct decision from an analytics standpoint, because in that situation you're supposed to go for 2. That way if you're down 21-14, then you can go for 2 to make it 22-21 by 2 touchdowns with 2 extra points, and that way you don't have to go to overtime. So even that was a wrong decision by Brian Callahan. But the Cardinals also forced Cam Ward to throw an interception, and then in a miraculous Looney Tunes style play, they fumbled the football and the Titans recovered for a touchdown. Arizona, and Drew Petzing definitely has his own blame in this game. I know Cardinals fans are very frustrated with Drew Petzing, and I completely get it, but to lose this game the way they did required just step after step after step of just frustration and, of course, bad play from the Arizona Cardinals. And I go back to the question of, do you think Jonathan Gannon is going to lead this team to an NFC West title, to winning not just one, but multiple playoff games with little things like this that add up over the course of time that should have never happened in the first place? And that's one of the biggest reasons the Cardinals are in today's video, is because I think they've done a lot of right things over the past couple of years with addressing this team's needs through the NFL draft and really trying to build through the NFL draft. But I said this a couple of weeks ago, and I think this game is another great example of, I like the vision that they have and what the vision that they had with Monty Ossenfort being the general manager of this team, but I don't think they have the right coaches in place to be able to fully execute the vision that they had from day one. The New York Jets are up, and left hand up, whenever you do a team preview for all 32 NFL teams, naturally you are going to get some predictions wrong, and I could not be more wrong about the Jets in the 2025 season. I really thought that Aaron Glenn was going to come in and establish a culture that, hey, we're going to kind of in some ways be like the Lions, a gritty team, we're knocked down 7 times, we're going to stand up 8, but it seems like whenever this team gets knocked down, they just kind of stay on the ground until they're 3.5 quarters into the game, and then they score 14 points in garbage time to make the score look a lot prettier than how the game is actually played. That definitely happened back in week 2 against the Bills, and they still lost by 20 points, and they only had 154 yards in that game, and 54 came on the final drive. That also kind of happened in the Cowboys game in week 5, where Justin Fields' numbers from this game really don't look that bad, but Jets fans know based on how he played and based on how the rest of the team played, this game was not close. And again, the Cowboys were out 4 out of 5 starters, and there was a reason the Jets were favored in this game, because Vegas thought with how many guys Dallas had out that the Jets would actually be able to win. And that is where my frustration lies with the Jets, is even when the expectations are low, they still don't come close to reaching those expectations. And there is a meme that says our expectations were low but wholly expletive, and that's how I feel about the Jets in 2025. They haven't forced a turnover. Even in 5 games, you would think that at some point you would be able to recover a fumble. Maybe somebody pokes a ball loose and you have somebody land on the football and we have 1 turnover forced in 5 games, but the Jets can't even do that. And here we are where the Jets go through another game where they look bad for 3 quarters and then they window dress the score in the final quarter, and I don't know what to say about this team, because this is a first-year head coach trying to change a culture that is already bad, and the players we have established on the channel before throughout the first couple of weeks of the season, that the top 5 or 6 players on the Jets are significantly better than players really 8 through 53 on this team, and it shows time and time again that obviously depth is needed in the NFL, but you really see it when you watch the Jets play due to the significant talent discrepancy on this roster. And with the Jets, you can talk about several bad decisions, such as continuing to play Brandon Stevens over rookie Azareye'h Thomas, who has played just 15 snaps in the first 5 games, or even drafting Arian Smith over Alec Manor, which I thought was a really bad talent evaluation with Arian Smith. And Alec Manor, for reference, was in my top 40. I didn't have Arian Smith in my top 200 of the 2025 draft, yet they took Arian in the 4th round, and there's plenty of reasons as to why the Jets are 0-5, but I really don't know, man. This is one of the most frustrating situations in football, and right now, especially with the ownership as well. I know Jets fans obviously have very strong reasons about Woody Johnson, and understandably so, and due in large part to ownership and with where the roster currently is, this is one of the most bleak situations in all of football. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as we are closing into 215,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.